Standard Nuclear Inc., the picks and shovels play on America's nuclear renaissance. Section 1. Executive Summary. So, let's talk about Standard Nuclear. This is a Delaware corporation headquartered in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and it's getting ready to go public on the New York Stock Exchange under the ticker STDN. What does this company actually do? They make advanced nuclear fuel, specifically a type called Standard Nuclear Inc., the picks and shovels play on America's nuclear renaissance. Section 1. Executive Summary. So, let's talk about Standard Nuclear. This is a Delaware corporation headquartered in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and it's getting ready to go public on the New York Stock Exchange under the ticker STDN. What does this company actually do? They make advanced nuclear fuel, specifically a type called TRISO, tristructural isotopic fuel particles, and they're not building nuclear reactors themselves. Instead, they're supplying the fuel that all kinds of next-generation reactors will need. That's the picks and shovels angle. Instead of mining for gold yourself, you sell the tools to everyone who's mining. The company was founded in 2024, yes, just 2 years ago, by Kurt Tarani and Thomas Hendricks. And right from the start, they made a smart move. In early 2025, they bought the fuel-related assets of Ultra-Safe Nuclear Corporation, which had gone bankrupt, for about $28 million. That gave them years of government-funded research, valuable intellectual property, and a real manufacturing foundation in TRISO field technology. Now, in 2016, in up to of $35 million, they bought in their $5 market cap for the first time Rocket and Weaver ever. Now, let's look at the IPO highlights. Standard Nuclear is offering 18.25 million shares of Class A common stock. The price range is set at $18 to $21 per share. At the midpoint of $19.50, that's roughly $355.9 million in gross proceeds. The underwriters also have the option to buy up to an additional 2.7 million shares, which could push total proceeds to about $383 million. The target post-IPO valuation is up to $3.6 billion. The stock is expected to start trading around July 16, 2026. Lead underwriters are B of A Securities and Goldman Sachs. One important thing to know up front, this is a dual-class share structure. Class A shares, what you'd buy in the IPO, get 1 vote each. Class B shares, held by founders and early investors, get 20 votes each. After the IPO, co-founder Thomas Hendricks will control about 59.5% of the total voting power, so he effectively calls the shots. That makes Standard Nuclear a controlled company under NYSE rules. On the financial side, and I want to be upfront here, this company is very early stage. For the 12 months ending March 31, 2026, they generated $3.36 million in revenue and posted a net loss of $14.97 million. For the first quarter of 2026 alone, revenue was $593,802 with a net loss of $7.71 million. So we're talking about a $3.6 billion valuation on under $4 million of annual revenue. This is absolutely a forward-looking, story-driven investment. We'll get into why that story is compelling in a moment. The money raised from the IPO will primarily go toward funding working capital, scaling up their manufacturing facilities in Oak Ridge, general corporate purposes, and potentially some strategic acquisitions. Section 2. Company Overview. Standard Nuclear is headquartered in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. If you know anything about the history of nuclear energy in the United States, you know Oak Ridge is basically ground zero for nuclear research. It's where the Manhattan Project had major operations, and it's home to Oak Ridge National Laboratory, one of the premier nuclear research institutions in the world. So the location is not an accident. The company was incorporated in Delaware and founded in 2024 by Dr. Kurt Tarani and Thomas Hendricks. Their mission is straightforward: reliably deliver the essential building blocks of nuclear power at scale, strengthen domestic energy security, and help enable the transition to clean, reliable baseload power. Here's the quick timeline of how they got here. In 2024, the company was incorporated. In early 2025, they acquired the fuel assets of the bankrupt Ultra-Safe Nuclear Corporation for $28 million. And this was a foundational moment, giving them real IP and manufacturing know-how right from the start. In June 2025, they came out of stealth mode and announced a $42.5 million seed funding round. Then, in January 2026, They raised $140 million in a Series A, led by Decisive Point, with co-investors including Andreessen Horowitz, Chevron Technology Ventures, and Stepstone Group. That funding valued the company at $838 million post-money. And now, in July 2026, they're going public. Their primary facility is a 19,000 square foot building on a 36.8-acre campus at the former K-25 site in Oak Ridge. They're equipping it to become an industrial-scale TRISO fuel production line. They also have a joint venture with Framatome, a major global nuclear company, that plans to operate an additional facility in Richland, Washington, leveraging an existing Nuclear Regulatory Commission license there. The primary Oak Ridge facilities are expected to be fully operational in the second half of 2026, pending readiness reviews with the Department of Energy. Section 3. Products and Services. Standard Nuclear's entire business is built around one core product, TRSO fuel particles. So what is TRSO? The acronym stands for Tri-Structural Isotropic. Each TRSO particle is about the size of a poppy seed. Inside every single particle is a uranium-based kernel, either uranium oxycarbide or uranium dioxide. Surrounding that kernel are 3 successive layers of carbon and ceramic materials. Those layers act as a miniaturized containment system. They're engineered to withstand extremely high temperatures, way beyond what traditional light water reactors operate at. They trap radioactive fission products inside the particle even under accident conditions. The company describes the fuel as robust, high-performance, and accident-tolerant. Essentially, you're creating millions of tiny independent pressure vessels, each one containing its own little piece of fuel. Even if something goes wrong with the reactor, those particles hold everything in. This makes TRISO one of the safest nuclear fuel designs ever developed, and it's the fuel type required by most next-generation reactor designs, including small modular reactors and microreactors. Beyond TRISO fuel particles, Standard Nuclear also develops radioisotope power systems. These are specialized power sources for environments where regular electricity just isn't available. Think remote military outposts, deep space missions, that kind of thing. These systems are targeted at national security and space exploration applications. The big strategic point here is what the company calls being reactor agnostic. Standard Nuclear doesn't make fuel for just one reactor design. They engineer their fuel to work with a wide range of next-generation reactors from different developers around the world. That means they can be the fuel supplier to the entire advanced reactor market, not just one customer. That's a really important distinction. Section 4. Business Model. The business model is what makes this company's story so interesting, and it's really captured in that phrase, picks and shovels and jeans. Applying that same logic, during the California gold rush, the people who reliably made money weren't always the miners. It was the people selling pickaxes, shovels, and jeans to the miners. Standard Nuclear is applying that same logic to nuclear energy. Instead of building reactors, which takes enormous amounts of capital, years of regulatory approvals, and massive execution risk, they manufacture the fuel that all of those reactors will need to operate. Revenue comes from 2 main streams. First, full development and services agreements, long-term contracts with commercial reactor developers for TRSO fuel customized to their specific reactor designs. Second, government R&D agreements, research and development work for U.S. South government agencies like the Department of Energy and the Department of Defense. Management tracks something called total contract backlog as a key performance indicator, which gives you a sense of the long-term, committed nature of their customer relationships. Their customer base spans both private and public sectors. On the commercial side, you've got developers of small modular reactors and microreactors across North America, Europe, and Asia. On the government side, you've got the Department of Energy, the Department of Defense, and space exploration applications for the radioisotope power systems. A few key partnerships are worth highlighting. They have a fuel recycling partnership with Oklo, a well-known SMR developer, backed by OpenAI's Sam Altman, which embeds Standard Nuclear into Oklo's future fuel supply chain. They have a joint venture with Framatome for manufacturing scale-up, using an existing NRC license in Washington state. And they're in advanced discussions with the Department of Energy about potentially converting surplus government-owned plutonium into reactor fuel. If that deal happens, it would give Standard Nuclear a unique, low-cost feedstock source that competitors simply can't access. Section 5. Industry and Market Analysis. Let's zoom out and look at why nuclear energy is having such a major moment right now. The first and most powerful driver is artificial intelligence. AI requires an enormous amount of electricity. Training large AI models and running data centers at scale is incredibly energy-intensive. Companies like Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, and Google are in a desperate search for massive, reliable, always-on power for their data center expansions. They're not just talking about nuclear, they're actually investing in next-generation nuclear technologies directly. In April 2026, Reuters reported that big tech is putting serious financial muscle behind next-gen nuclear power because of this AI demand surge. Small modular reactors and microreactors are viewed as ideal solutions to power large data center campuses. The second driver is decarbonization. Nuclear is one of the only energy sources that can provide carbon-free electricity 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, regardless of weather. Wind and solar are great, but they're intermittent. Nuclear delivers firm, reliable, zero-carbon baseload power. That makes it a critical piece of any serious climate strategy. The third driver is energy security and the HALEU supply chain. HALEU, high-assay low-enriched uranium, enriched to between 5 and 20% U-35, is the feedstock that many advanced reactors require. For years, the Western world was heavily reliant on Russia for this material. In 2024, the United States banned Russian uranium imports. That created an urgent national priority to build a domestic HALEU supply chain. Standard Nuclear is directly positioned to be part of that solution. On market size, Standard Nuclear commissioned a market study from Wood Mackenzie, a respected energy consultancy on U.S. South demand for TRSO fuel. The study is referenced in their SEC filings. However, specific TAM, SAM, and SOM figures from that study have not been publicly disclosed. Section 6. Financial Analysis. Now let's get into the financials. And I want to say up front, this is an early-stage company, so these numbers are going to look very different from a mature business. All figures come directly from Standard Nuclear's Form S-1 and S-1/A filings with the SEC. For the 3 months ended March 31st, 2026, the most recent quarter, the company generated revenue of $593,802. That compared this month was also done. So, revenue grew 57.1% year-over-year. That's meaningful growth off a small base. The net loss for Q1 2026 was $7.71 million, compared to a net loss of $8.29 million in Q1 2025. So the losses are actually narrowing slightly, which is a positive trend. On a trailing 12-month basis, the 12 months ending March 31st, 2026, the company generated $3.36 million in total revenue and posted a net loss of $14.97 million. Now, here's the obvious elephant in the room. A $3.6 billion target valuation on $3.36 million of annual revenue. That's an enormous implied multiple. This valuation is not based on current financial performance. It's based on the market opportunity, the technology, the team, and the growth trajectory. Investors are essentially betting on what this company could look like in 5 to 10 years if advanced reactors go mainstream. On the funding side, $42.5 million from the seed round in June 2025, $140 million from the Series A in January 2026, which valued the company at $838 million. And now, the IPO, targeting around $355.9 million at the midpoint. The company has not disclosed EBITDA figures, detailed balance sheet data, total assets, total liabilities, cash on hand, is available in the complete Form S-1/A on SEC EDGR. Section 7. IPO Details. Let's walk through the specific details of the offering. Standard Nuclear is listing on the New York Stock Exchange under the ticker STDN. They're offering 18.25 million Class A common shares at a price range of $18 to $21 per share. At the midpoint of $19.50, that raises about $355.9 million in gross proceeds. Underwriters have a 30-day option to purchase up to an additional 2.7 million shares. If exercised in full at the high end of the range, total proceeds could reach about $383 million. The target post-IPO valuation is up to $3.6 billion. Expected pricing, the week of July 15th, 2026. Expected first trading day, on or around July 16th, 2026. Lead underwriters are BOA Securities and Goldman Sachs. Additional book runners include Barclays, UBS Investment Bank, Evercore ISI, RBC Capital Markets, William Blair, and Stifel. That's a serious underwriting syndicate, not something you throw together for a small offering. Now, the government structure is really important to understand before investing. This is a dual-class share company. Class A shares, what you're buying in the IPO, carry 1 vote per share, 59.5% of total voting power. Class B shares, held by founders and early investors, carry 20 votes per share. After the IPO closes, co-founder Thomas Hendricks will control approximately 59.5% of total voting power. That means he can essentially determine the outcome of any shareholder vote. The company qualifies as a controlled company under NYSE rules, which exempts it from certain governance requirements, like needing a majority of independent directors on the board. Use of proceeds, fund working capital, scale the Oak Ridge manufacturing facilities, general corporate purposes, and potentially pursue strategic acquisitions. Section 8. Competitive Analysis. Standard Nuclear operates in a competitive market. Let's go through the key players. X Energy, ticker XKENE, went public in April 2026. They are probably the most direct competitor to Standard Nuclear in the TRISO fuel space. The big difference is that X Energy is vertically integrated. They're building their own reactor design, the XE100, and making their own proprietary TRISO fuel for it. So they compete directly with Standard Nuclear on fuel, but they're also tied to their own reactor program rather than serving the whole market. Centrus Energy, ticker LEU, is a key player in U.S. South domestic HALEU production and nuclear fuel services. They're both a potential supplier to Standard Nuclear, because Standard Nuclear needs HALEU feedstock and a competitor in the broader advanced fuel space. Interestingly, Standard Nuclear's own CFO, Kevin Harrell, is the former CFO of Centrus. Framatome is a global giant in nuclear reactor design, fuel, and services. Rather than compete head-on with Framatome, Standard Nuclear chose to partner with them through a joint venture for manufacturing scale-up. Smart move. BWX Technologies, ticker BWXT, is a major supplier of nuclear components and fuel for U.S. government and naval programs. They're a competitor in specialized and government fuel markets. Westinghouse Electric, owned by Brookfield and Cameco, is another global nuclear fuel and reactor services leader with massive scale. Oklo Inc., ticker OKLO, went public through a SPAC and is developing advanced microreactors. Standard Nuclear has a fuel reactors partnership with Oklo, though Oklo's long-term fuel sourcing strategy could evolve. And then you have major uranium miners like Cameco and Kazatomprom, which control the upstream raw uranium supply. What makes Standard Nuclear's differentiation summary? Their reactor-agnostic pure-play model means they serve the whole market, not just one reactor design. They built their foundation on acquired USNC IP, years of government-funded research obtained cheaply from bankruptcy. They have a world-class technical team from Oak Ridge National Laboratory. And their Framatome JV gives them manufacturing scale-up capabilities without having to build everything from scratch. Section 9. Management Team. The management team here is genuinely impressive, especially on the technical side. Kurt Tarani is the CEO and co-founder. He has a deep technical background in nuclear materials and field development. Before starting Standard Nuclear, he was a senior staff scientist and national technical director at Oak Ridge National Laboratory. He also served as a vice president at Ultrasafe Nuclear Corporation, where he led the development of what was described as the nation's largest TRISO fuel manufacturing line. So this is the person who literally built the manufacturing process that Standard Nuclear is now trying to scale commercially. That's a huge asset. Thomas Hendricks is the co-founder and executive chairman. He co-founded the company alongside Tarani. As we mentioned, he'll hold about 59.5% of the voting power post-IPO. His detailed prior career history was not disclosed in the sources reviewed. Full biographical details are available in the S1AO on SEC EDGR. Kevin Harrell is the CFO. He previously served as Senior Vice President and CFO of Centrus Energy Corporation, which is a key U.S. South HALEU producer and a publicly listed nuclear fuel company. He brings exactly the kind of public company financial experience you want when you're about to do an IPO in the nuclear industry. Keely Morocco is the COO. She was formerly the head of energy investing at Decisive Point, the very VC firm that led Standard Nuclear's $140 million Series A. So she's made the jump from investor to operator, which means she deeply understands both the business fundamentals and the capital market side. Sharon Gassemian is the Chief Legal and Compliance Officer. He's a veteran of both the Nuclear Regulatory Commission and the Department of Energy. He's also been the Chief Legal Officer for 2 publicly traded companies. In an industry as heavily regulated as nuclear, having someone with his specific background is genuinely important. The VP-level technical team is also strong. Brian Jolly leads TRISO manufacturing. Michael Tranel leads fuel production. Brian Aid leads engineering. All 3 come from Oak Ridge National Laboratory backgrounds. Section 10. Key risks. All right, now let's talk about the risks. And there are real ones here. This is important. Don't skip this section. Risk number 1. Execution and operations. The company was founded in 2024 and has been losing money since then. There's no guarantee they become profitable. Their entire near-term business plan depends on successfully scaling their Oak Ridge manufacturing facilities to full capacity in the second half of 2026. That requires passing DOE readiness reviews. Any delays or failures in that process could seriously impact their ability to generate revenue. Risk number 2. Regulation and politics. The nuclear industry is one of the most heavily regulated industries on Earth by the NRC, the DOE, and international bodies. Changes in regulations, delays getting licenses, or shifts in government nuclear policy could be seriously damaging. And as a controlled company, some institutional investors may be uncomfortable with the governance structure. Risk number 3. AALU supply chain. To make their TESO fuel, Standard Nuclear needs AALU, high-assay low-enriched uranium. The domestic AALU supply chain is currently very limited. The company may be dependent on just 1 or 2 suppliers, primarily Centrus Energy. If that supply chain gets disrupted for any reason, production could stop. Risk number 4. Customer and market risk. Standard Nuclear's success is tied to whether the companies building advanced reactors actually succeed. If those reactor designs don't get regulatory approval, can't raise enough money, or just don't get widely adopted, then the demand for Standard Nuclear's fuel shrinks significantly. Many of these reactor projects are still in early development. Risk number 5. Capital. This business needs a lot of money. While the IPO will provide a substantial cash injection, the company will very likely need to raise more capital in the future. If market conditions aren't favorable at that time, or if the company's performance disappoints, raising more money could be difficult or expensive. Risk number 6. Competition. They're up against established giants like Framatome, Westinghouse, and BWX Technologies, as well as well-funded newcomers like X-Energy, which just went public with plenty of cash. Competitors could develop better or cheaper fuel technologies. Risk number 7. Valuation. Disagree. This is a big one. The company is targeting a $3.6 billion valuation on about $3.36 million of annual revenue. If manufacturing scale-up hits delays, if commercial contracts are slower to materialize than expected, or if investor sentiment toward nuclear shifts, the stock could fall sharply from its IPO price. Risk number 8. Dilution. If you buy Class A shares in the IPO, you'll experience immediate and substantial dilution in net tangible book value per share. That's just the math of an early-stage company going public. Section 11. Post-IPO growth catalysts. Now let's look at what could go right for Standard Nuclear. Catalyst number 1. Manufacturing scale-up success. The single most important near-term catalyst is the Oak Ridge facility reaching full production capacity on schedule in the second half of 2026, passing the DOE readiness reviews and starting to deliver fuel commercially. If that goes smoothly, it would be a massive confidence boost for the stock. Catalyst number 2. Major customer contract announcements. As advanced reactor developers get closer to commercial deployment, they need to lock in their fuel suppliers. If Standard Nuclear announces 1 or more large, multi-year fuel supply agreements with leading SMR or microreactor companies, that would provide long-term revenue visibility and likely re-rate the stock meaningfully. Catalyst number 3. Contractive contract expansion. The potential contract expansion. The potential contract to convert surplus government plutonium into reactor fuel, if finalized, would be a game-changer and it would give Standard Nuclear a unique, low-cost feedstock source that no competitor can replicate, plus a stable, high-margin revenue stream. Additional DoD or NASA contracts for radioisotope power systems would further diversify revenue into non-cyclical government markets. Catalyst number 4, Framatome JV facility launch. Getting the joint venture facility in Richland, Washington operational would significantly expand production capacity beyond Oak Ridge. That opens the door to larger commercial contracts. Catalyst number 5, IPO capital deployment. With about $356 million to work with, Standard Nuclear is well-positioned to make strategic acquisitions, buying complementary technologies, fuel cycle assets, or smaller competitors. Smart M&A could accelerate growth substantially. Catalyst number 6, policy tailwinds. The bipartisan political support for nuclear energy in the U.S. South is at its strongest in decades. New legislation providing subsidies, loan guarantees, or streamlined regulatory pathways for advanced reactors and domestic fuel cycle companies would be a direct positive catalyst for Standard Nuclear's business. Catalyst number 7, industry milestone moments. When the first advanced reactor built by one of Standard Nuclear's customers successfully generates power and connects to the grid, that will be a watershed moment for the entire industry, validating the technology, unlocking new investment, and creating real demand for fuel. Watch for demonstration projects and first criticality announcements from reactor developers as key signals. Section 12. Conclusion. So where does this leave us on Standard Nuclear? The company has put together a genuinely compelling story at a genuinely exciting moment for nuclear energy. The founders know this technology inside and out. They built their foundation smartly by acquiring bankrupt USNC's assets for $28 million, years of government-funded R&D at a bargain price. They're backed by Andreessen Horowitz and Chevron. They have a joint venture with Framatome. And they've built a leadership team that reads like a who's who of the U.S. South nuclear establishment, from Oak Ridge National Laboratory, from the NRC, from the DOE, from Centrus Energy. The macro backdrop is stronger than it's been in decades. AI-driven electricity demand is creating a structural need for nuclear power that wasn't there 5 years ago. The U.S. South is prioritizing domestic nuclear fuel supply chains after the Russian uranium ban, and clean energy policy is driving massive new investment into next-generation nuclear technology. The picks and shovels model is genuinely smart. While the reactor developers face massive capital requirements, long regulatory timelines, and enormous execution risks, Standard Nuclear just focuses on making the fuel. It's a more focused, more scalable model. But, and this is a real but, the current valuation is extraordinary relative to current revenues. $3.6 billion for a company with $3.36 million in trailing revenue is a very aggressive bet. Every key milestone, the manufacturing scale-up, the commercial contracts, the government agreements, still lies ahead. This is a story stock, and story stocks can be volatile. The dual-class governance structure concentrating 59.5% of voting power with one founder is something you should think carefully about before investing. If you have a long-time horizon, understand deep tech industrial companies, and believe in the nuclear renaissance thesis, Standard Nuclear offers a rare chance to invest near the beginning of what could be a transformational company. If you're looking for near-term profitability or conventional valuation metrics, this isn't that investment. Read the full Form S-1A on SEC Eater before making any decision, especially the complete risk factor section, the full financial statements, and the details of the dual-class share structure. That's Standard Nuclear, ticker STDN, heading to the New York Stock Exchange.